1. The cast is as follows. Me, the OP. Nerdy, autistic theater major. Can beat you in a game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And also bake you a cake so good it'll bring tears to your eyes. Necky, our neckbeard. Standard model, greasy skin, can smell him coming. Thinks he knows what real social interaction looks like because of the anime he's seen, but still can't look a girl in the eye. And of course, the all-important greasy neckbeard. Gerald, an enigma. Gerald is approachable, super nice, and drinks his daily cup of respecting women juice. He's a theater major too. I had just transferred to this new college, and Gerald was already in his 3rd year. Gerald and I had different classes in the same building, and a 1-hour break before we had the same stagecraft class, as part of our theater major. We decided to eat lunch and then hang out near our next classroom at the gazebo on campus. Necky was already there, working on what I assumed was some schoolwork. Gerald and I sat on the opposite side of the gazebo and started talking about random stuff. I mentioned that I heard there was a small card and game shop just off campus, and asked Gerald if he had been. He said he had sold some old Pokemon cards there, and I said that's too bad because I gladly would have bought them if he still had them. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Necky's back straighten up. He put what he was working on in his backpack and got out his phone, but I think he was probably listening in a lot more than he was checking his phone. Gerald and I kept up the conversation until my roommate came and asked if she could borrow my student ID to get into our dorm building because she forgot hers back in the room. I said I wouldn't give her my ID, but I would go unlock the door for her to get into the building. You had to swipe your ID card and scanner to get into the building, but each individual suite had its own keys to get in. Her keys were on her backpack, but her wallet was in the dorm. My dorm was literally a 60-second walk and within vision of the gazebo. So I told Gerald I would be right back, and left my backpack with him while I let my roommate in. So, I'm autistic, and one thing I absolutely cannot stand is wearing jeans. I hate them with a burning passion, and on this particular day, I was wearing a dress with no leggings or shorts on underneath. When I got up, I moved in some way or the wind apparently blew my dress up in the back. As soon as I was out of earshot, this is what Necky started saying to Gerald.
You could bounce a quarter off that, bud.
Huh?
So is she your girlfriend?
No, we just met this week, and I have a girlfriend.
Oh, I see how you play the game. You date another girl and try to get with girls like that one all the time, don't you?
Excuse me? I don't see OP like that, and I would never cheat on my girlfriend.
Oh, I bet you would if you could. Any man would be happy to get with such a breedable female.
What did you just say to me?
What? I can't look at a girl like that without wanting to spread my seed.
Gerald silently got up, picked up Necky's backpack, and threw it straight out of the gazebo as hard as he could. He then sat back down and said, "If you're not gone by the time OP gets back, I'll kick your ass myself and then tell OP so she can kick your ass too." Necky got up to collect his backpack, which, as I'm writing this, I realize might have had his laptop in it, and scuttles away before I get back. I never spoke to Necky, and he never spoke to me. Gerald just told me what happened over a year ago today. He said it had slipped his mind, but I think he probably just didn't want me to know. So now I have the word breedable added to my phone's dictionary. 2. Welcome one and all to the tale of the most cringe of D&D horror stories. Not only in a normal D&D group, but a West March at that. The cast today is Crusader Beard. I run one of the largest West March D&D games on Discord, an endless tale that allows DMs to explore whatever stories they wish to in an endless multiverse. It had been running for about a year before CB joined. We had our fair share of weirdos, but this one obviously stood out. He came to me one Sunday evening and asked about the lore of my world. I love explaining my lore to integrate their characters into. So I explained everything he wanted to know, and he decided to make a character a part of a family that is of a cadet branch of the Royal Crusader family of Cor Orium. He made me such a lovely backstory and asked to fight to become the champion of Solana, goddess of light. You forward a few sessions, and a dying paladin granted him the power of an angel blade, supposed to be part of his backstory, and he gracefully accepted and charged upwards with his abilities and finished his quest. However, from here on out, he started to go downhill. Whenever someone would attempt to make RP with him, he would say, "I have the angel blade, angel of equity," almost like an NPC you pressed A on. Whenever I would wake up in the morning, I would see messages of, "So when do I become champion?" To which I reply, You're level 5, so not anytime soon." Crusader Beard kept going on about how his family helped out in a crusade and how he was chosen by the gods, and people just started getting frustrated. "I am the wielder of the holy sword," was his go-to line, just randomly in combat. "You see people chained up being tortured by demons," says the DM. "I have the holy sword, let me hit them." "There's a small goblin. I will smite it." He just never gave up. Eventually, we had our first player leave because of him, and we needed to talk to him. He kept saying he understood his faults, and we let him off with a slap on the wrist. Anyways, our server is inclusive, and I myself am pansexual, and lots of others on the server are queer or trans. And well, we hate bigots. Anyways, I guess during an RP session, Crusader Beard kept calling a trans woman he. I confronted him, and they told me it was an accident. As well, with our group discussions, we usually would go on rants about how cute our gay relationships were, and he just sat there silent. It was very odd, almost like he was a slowly broiling trumpet waiting to strike us when he reached his full potential. One red flag was during our session where he was trying to help dark elves, who were being oppressed by an evil crusade. I said that the common people here have alienated the dark elves, blaming them for crimes, murders, and kidnappings. He did not seem to understand right away that this is racism. I had to explain it to him in detail, and he just said, okay, whatever." Once Crusader Beard started getting used to the server, he decided that he was above the DM as well. Once he learned more of his character and decided he was much more powerful than most of these fickle gods, he started doing the greatest heresy of all, backseat DMing. Every session, someone will say they're doing something. "Go ahead." "I asked the DM." "Yeah, okay." God, I hated him saying that. It was repetitive and insulting to the DM. My least favorite was one session where we were fighting while blinded and he kept yelling, "I have blind sight," at the top of his lungs, every single time he was going to attack. Hell, any time he had triggered an ability, he would yell, "I have a trigger," and interrupt someone in the area. This on top of how slow his turns went. He was like a crusading snail that had a speaker strapped to him. Eventually, we began to talk with him more, and all of his admins were completely done with him. Players were leaving, DMs were fed up. What can we do? Well, the worst was yet to come. During a game where we were saying how strong everyone was in character, Crusader Beard decided to macho us up and said, "I'm 6'6" and could beat anyone up." This was rude, and we shook it off, but his macho attempt to make us scared was ill-used. However, at the final quest of his career, we were questing through an old city we sieged to the ground, trying to scout it out. We have one player who's underaged, sort of like our server stepchild. We put up with him and taught him the ways to become a good DM. I'm proud of him. He was role-playing with Crusader Beard and told his character to have a drink and listen up a bit. This triggered Crusader Beard, and he unloaded on the poor child, calling him every name in the book, causing him to cry and have an anxiety attack. Well, one of the admins was in the game and insta-banned him. We convened and addressed the damage, and decided to check out his Twitch and Twitter, as none of us had checked it out, even though he loved to remind us about them. The man turned out to be a complete alt-right trumper, anti-queer, anti-trans, anti-everything we stood for. I'm amazed he lasted so long in our queer D&D haven. My gods. 3. I am an artist. I usually draw anime-style characters, and OC characters like mine created Majin Tofu. I made a Twitter page dedicated to her, and it got quite a lot of attention from fans, since she was my escape from bad mental thoughts. And well, I can agree some things I may draw may be sexual or lewd. I am also the type that some describe as woo-woo pink gamer girl, with pink PC setups and fashion mainly being either Japanese, like Manhera, Fairy K, Lolita, etc., or simply cute. After quarantine, when stores and social places were opening up, I decided to go out to town with a friend I haven't seen ever since the UK's first lockdown. We visited some of our favorite stores, many of which shut down. I really wanted to get some figures or mangas, so I looked up on Google Maps for any manga stores. Google showed me the way to a store that was in a shady alleyway. However, it was brightly lit up. Turned out it was a comic book and D&D store, so I went inside to see what kind of things they had. Because I was very interested in D&D and playing it in the future, I picked up a few books, a player's guide, and a monster manual for fun. Once checking them out, the store's owner asked me if I play D&D. I replied that I really want to, but no one I know hosts one. So he insisted that I join his campaign, telling me that if I had a character sheet already made, I can join the next day. He gave me all the details and told me to text him over WhatsApp if I will be joining in. Well, the answer was yes. I really wanted to join in, and I already had a character sheet made for a Dark Elf Bard. The next day, I went in after the store closed with some snacks in my bag and feeling confidently nervous about it. At first, I panicked that the door was locked. But the store owner unlocked it and let me in, asking how I was and if I'm ready for the story. Apparently, they already played the pilot of the story, so I am joining in as someone who just came to town on their own and joins the group for their quests. The table was beyond what I expected, customized board with their own buildings and figurines. The owner even gave me a figure of an elf as a gift and for me to play as. And because one person was not at the table and running late, I was able to introduce to everyone. Most of them were very friendly and respectful, and yet I made friends with few of them. Some even told me they cosplay regularly and sometimes will make a costume of their own D&D character. When I was showing them some of my pictures of my cosplays and fursuits I made before leaving the furry fandom, the store owner, also the dungeon master, got up to go get the door. A moment later, large footsteps came down the stairs, as it was the Neckbeard. Everyone went silent, and I sat down, unsure what to do. As Neckbeard looked at us and looked at me, his look sent shivers down my spine, and I couldn't pinpoint why. He looked like a regular anime fan. He was wearing a black graphic t-shirt which had Kana on it. A character that is a dragon aged 300 years but looks like a 5-year-old girl, which made me wonder what kind of guy he is. He sat down at the end of the table, as if it was his place, before leaning towards me and brought out his skinny hand to me, introducing himself as Neckbeard. I laughed off the hand awkwardly and introduced myself as myself. Once the DM sat down, he started off the game with our characters meeting up and going on a quest to a cave to find missing royal jewels that the goblins had stolen from us, with my dark elf aiding the party with songs and poems of her past encounters of certain people, and mocking the goblins at the same time. Midway, we decided to take a small break. Some of the players went outside for a smoke, as I decided to chat with a friend of Krelith, their character name, as we chat about anime that we want to watch, and that brought Neckbeard's attention when he was on his phone and joined in. I didn't mind it, so we chat about it. I mentioned that I liked Dragon Ball and made my own characters. Neckbeard asked if I had any designs of them, so I gave him my Twitter so he could look through the art of my characters. He called my OC Tofu hot and a breedable being, pointing out that the Majins are very stretchy and can make their pussies feel like brand new every time. I regretted giving my socials to him. After the game, I left the store and went to the bus stop, and realized Neckbeard was at the same bus stop I was. We didn't talk, but I felt his stare going towards me as I was messaging my boyfriend to let him know I am okay and on my way home. Neckbeard came close to me and asked if I was taking the same bus as him, which was number 23. I gave him a nod. Neckbeard then questioned me if I had any more of the characters I drew art of. I looked at him and asked if he promised not to say anything weird about them, and he asked, "Weird? Like what?" He laughed it off. I told him about the breedable thing, and he laughed at it more, saying that I drew her that way with huge boobs and in tight clothing, so I should expect and accept those kind of comments. So I told him that is wrong to say that, and put my headphones up and tried to message my boyfriend to see if he could pick me up instead, as I didn't think the long bus ride home with Neckbeard asking about my characters and things would be the best. At the end, my boyfriend came down to the bus stop. I kindly waved Neckbeard off and went inside the car. He asked who that was, and I told him he was just a guy who played D&D with me. Later on, my phone started to get a lot of messages. A message request from Neckbeard on my Twitter, saying he is sorry for those comments, and asked if he can see more of the characters. I accepted his apology and sent him a few, and he appreciated the art and design of them. A couple of weeks go by. Our D&D party finally leveled up to level 2. And at the end, we all went out to the nearest McDonald's to get some food before we all part ways to home. Me and Krelith were sitting next to each other as we both thought of going to another town to do some anime shopping together, get some figures or mangas and other things. Neckbeard was sitting on his own in a corner. We insisted he join in with us, but he told us no, and mainly was on his phone watching something. Before everyone left, I picked up a meal for my boyfriend and went to the bus stop with Neckbeard. I asked what he was watching, saying nothing and that it was none of my concern. I jokingly said, "Was it hentai?" And he acted at one of those nanny moments in anime. "How did you know?" he asked me, thinking I may have seen it when I walked past him or something. I just stayed quiet and continued to walk to the bus stop. Me and Neckbeard stood at the stop. He asked if I'm buying another meal for when I get home. I told him no and said it was for my boyfriend for when he comes back from work. He then stood in front of me, being quite close, and placed his hands on top of the walls. I believe he was thinking it would be the most romantic way, like in the type of anime he watches. He breathed down onto my face and told me that I was the most beautiful, kindest, and talented person in the world, and that he wants to go out on a date with me. I told him no. I already have a boyfriend that I am very happy to be with, and he told me that I should just dump him and go out with him instead. He promises to be better than him. I still told him no and walked out of the awkward position. He then asked if he could instead go out with my characters, that he can just roleplay with them. "It will be fine," he said. I told him no and told him to not ask anything like that. Bus ride home was awkward. He still attempted to ask me the same things and sit next to me, but I was able to get out of the seat and sit on one of the seated areas. Once I got home, I made sure Neckbeard didn't follow me. He still messaged me with the asterisks for the roleplays that he began himself. I ignored the messages, read them but ignored them. Once my boyfriend came home, we snuggled up under the blankets to finish up some My Hero Academia. And once we decided to go to bed, I checked the messages and saw that Neckbeard blocked me. I scrolled through the messages, and it seemed like his kindness slowly went down to being an asshole in general, calling me a slut for once wearing a maid dress at a D&D game, which the party didn't mind and actually told me to wear one, and for leading him to thinking that we'd become more than friends, and mentioning that he hoped I was still happy with the abusive Chad boyfriend that he knows very well cheats on me. My boyfriend went through a lot of toxic relationships with his exes cheating and using him for money, and I highly trust and love him to the point that I know he isn't cheating on me. I laughed it off, showed my boyfriend the messages, and he told me if I see him again to tell him so he can beat him up. After the events, Neckbeard still came to the D&D games, but he made his character like one of those edgy loner characters, saying he can do it on his own and he cannot trust anyone in the party, as a certain dark elf bard broke the samurai's heart. He slowly stopped coming to the game, and we didn't really pay much attention to it anyway. Just recently, when we were on a quest with a long journey, Krelith asked my character to sing them a song for the journey, for me to reply with, "Alrighty then, here's the story of the sweaty neckbeard samurai." 4. Brother Beard is 4 years my senior, so he became aware of women earlier than I did. However, it didn't last long because he shared his knowledge of the opposite gender. Keep in mind that he is legitimately a nice guy, and this isn't just because he is my brother. I have never heard him degrade anyone using any kind of term like bitch or wench. He even hates the word wench. However, his Asperger's negates this fact with his inability to understand what to say and what not to say. Before I became a teenager, he taught me about sex and what to do to the girl. Yes, I mean to, and how to get them. Almost like they were prized meat. Keep in mind, he did it in a way where you were still nice to them, but treated them like a prize to get. Thankfully, that didn't last too long. However, he got lonely pretty quick. He was never able to get a girlfriend, so he obsessed over it with whatever we did for fun. There was this time that we discovered tarot cards and Ouija boards. Now, I know this sounds like a paranormal story, but trust me, it's still Neckbeard. He read up how to read one's future with the tarot cards, and decided to find out who I am to marry in the future. I knew from the start that this was bull, and it was proven to me when he predicted that I would marry women of each hair color, 2 different ethnic groups, and at 20 different ages. I would love to have had that much attention. When we tried to do the Ouija board, it was obvious that he was moving the planchette. Once it slid off the board, he picked it up, placed it back on the board, and continued the sentence. Then it came to when he discovered a female ghost his age in the basement, and she talked to him through the board, and who could guess? She had a crush on Brother Beard. He started to do private sessions in his room with the door closed. Like, what is the point of this? No one cares that you fabricated a ghost girlfriend. Why go through the hassle of having a date with her? Lately, he had found his spirit animal, a naked woman. To be precise, she is a white tiger that appears to him as a naked woman. His favorite animal is a white tiger. It's like me saying my spirit animal is a dinosaur. And her name is the same name that he wanted to name his first daughter. The only person that bought this was our mother. There are a lot of stories I can tell about Brother Beard. There are a lifetime of stories after all. If you think me telling this isn't bad taste, then let me know. Nicely. I do really love my brother, and he is a genuinely nice guy, given what I've said. He's more like a teddy bear that doesn't know how to interact with the public. Take care, guys. 5. This is the tale of a beard who eventually came round to be a decent human being. We'll call him Sugarbeard for several reasons. 1. He had the lightest blonde beard I have ever seen that was nearly white. 2. He had a notorious sweet tooth. 3. He eventually turned out to be a sweet person. But believe me, this man had a lot of emotional and mental unpacking to get to that point. This tale will be in multiple parts that will follow in subsequent videos. I was a transfer to a small college in the spring semester of my freshman year. I liked my old college, but my family needed a physical caretaker in the many emergencies that they had, and I needed to be closer to them. We'll unlock tragic backstory, trademark, in a later story increment, because I know it's most important to introduce our beardy main character. I was struggling to move in my things, alone. I was also coming before most people, so I could get my orientation as a transfer student. So most of the rooms were very empty. One of them obviously wasn't, though, because some awful metal was being blasted from it. I don't dislike metal as a genre, but I know bad music in any genre when I hear it. I kept jostling my things around and somehow managed to accidentally have my shoulder bag full of textbooks slam hard into the floor with a massive clap that could be heard over the music. Then the door where the music seemed to be coming from swung open.
"You don't like it? You can cut your ears off!"
bellowed a nasally voice over the music. The stout guy turned and saw me, then flushed.
"Never mind,"
he grumbled, seeing me struggling with my things.
"I thought it was that Chad from upstairs again. I didn't know it was a lady."
This man, who had just made the greatest first impression in recorded history, was our beardy protagonist, Sugarbeard. As far as physical appearance goes, he wasn't a neckbeard that made you want to vomit. His scruffy near-white beard he left unkempt. It didn't look good on him at all, but at least it didn't look like pubes. He was overweight, but at least not morbidly obese. He was, however, rather short, probably 5'3". He had no shoes on his hairy feet, and was wearing cargo shorts and an excessive number of pockets and an Iron Maiden t-shirt. Well, at least I knew that he was aware better metal existed in the world. The part that made me hope he wouldn't be too bad was that I couldn't smell him from where I was standing. He shuffled over to me and snatched up my things.
"Hey! Come on! These are too heavy for you.
You don't want to get all burly, do you? Sure. Plenty of girls like muscles. Oh, he murmured, visibly disappointed.
You're a lesbian.
Yep, I said curtly. This is the truth. I wasn't lying for the sake of convenience. He oddly piped back up.
Makes sense. I prefer vagina too.
He carried a few of my bags to the door of my new apartment.
Your roommate's with Alana. She's kind of a bitch.
I think I'll have to find that out for myself.
She's got a rabbit, though.
It's okay. Well, that's cool. Thanks for the help. I wonder why people like rabbit hair, but not hair in other places. He murmured, stroking his scraggly beard. I stood there in complete awkwardness. He shrugged and headed back down the hall to his room. I met Alana in the next 2 days. She wasn't a bitch. She seemed to have some pretty bad anxiety, though. That's why she had a rabbit as a therapy pet. We'll call the rabbit Chip. Shortly after we met, we noticed our stove had a problem with one of the burners that I hadn't used yet. Alana called maintenance about it, and I had to leave for training for a part-time job. When I got back into our building, there was metal music blaring again. I got to our door, unlocked it. Alana was curled in a corner, bawling her eyes out. I closed the door quickly. What happened? Chip is missing. The maintenance guy left the door open. Chip was out. I was in the bathroom. I gave her some tissues and offered to help her look. She dried off her face and got up. We have to get that gross guy from down the hall to turn off his music, she said, now fully composed. That would scare Chip, and she'd be a lot easier to catch if not scared. She hammered on his door to get no response. We decided to try the closest lounge area to look for Chip. Then we found Sugarbeard, rump in the air, reaching under the couch. Before we could utter a word, we heard the sound of a small creature struggling. Sugarbeard pulled Chip out from under the couch, by the scruff of her neck. There were little scratches all up and down his arms, but he was grinning, holding the flailing rabbit in the air. Alana snatched Chip from him and cradled her in her arms. "What's wrong with you?" she snapped.
I heard you asking at my neighbor's door if they'd seen your rabbit, so I knew it was missing. So I played to animal instincts. I played the music loud so he was a little incapacitated with his sensitive ears, and tracked him down to corner him.
Or you could have not scared her out of her mind and just looked for her. Please just leave me alone. I thought you learned from last year I wasn't interested. What did you think you were going to do, be the big hero? She stormed off, and I followed her to calm her down. At this point, I wasn't expecting him to ever improve. I thought he was just obsessively chasing after a girl as his object of desire. A year later, everything has changed. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Neckbeards in the Wild, episode 67. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you enjoyed the video, then please do like and subscribe to see more. Comments are also appreciated. Right, I think we have a little birthday shout-out today, don't we? Yes, we do. Today's birthday shout-out goes to Devon. They don't mention how old they are, but that's okay. However old you are, maybe you're aging backwards. Maybe you're doing like a maybe you're like Gandalf, aging backwards, or like a Benjamin Button thing. Well, I suppose that wouldn't be as fun. Anyway, however old you are today, I hope you have a lovely, lovely birthday. I hope the weather is kind, unless you like rain, in which case I hope it rains and you have a nice rainy birthday if that makes you happier. And may you get lots of yummy things and presents. Alright, now before we go, I'd like to sing happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Devon. Happy birthday to you. Alright, I think we'll wrap things up there for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.